that is that window to the underneath. So that you know, back and forth conversation does take place. It's not like just like it's done. It's like, ooh, maybe that needs a little more there. You know, it does sort of want to, you know, it does talk back. Yeah.
Yeah. Paintings always talk back.
Right.
What determines the size of the triangles?
Okay, that's a good point. I use different sticks that are almost like 6 feet long.
No, but I mean, like, why the size?
Oh, why this? It depends on each painting, really. You know, I think at some point, like I was using a brush stroke that's about 1 inch, so I think these triangles related to that. So the initial 1 inch brush stroke then related to the 1 inch stick. Sometimes that gets broken down into more. Like the one behind you is like 5/8 or 3/4. So they shift, and that's on purpose. Each painting should have its own personalized.
But you maintain whatever size you started with to do all the triangles in the floor.
Sometimes I've painted over areas that are a little smaller and use different sets of triangles, but yeah, this one they're all consistent in holding space. Let's. Oh,
Yeah, why triangle?
oh, well, good point. So prior to the triangles, I was painting just straight up rooms from memory, and I had some. Chris and I had created a show of a dollhouse show. We built dollhouse-sized rooms, so I was drawing a lot of how to build those rooms, and some of those rooms that I painted just sat on the canvas and had all this empty space. So it was almost like a throwaway, and I was like, oh, let me just throw some triangles on the side. And I thought, oh, and they were just black and white, like a checkerboard, but they were triangles. And it seemed sort of like throwaway ridiculous, and it was coming from the side. And I thought, oh, well, I could maybe combine these things, And so organically, initially I would just draw the grid and then try and figure out a pattern within that, or, I imagined what it would be like to be staccato through that, so the lines had a sort of serrated look, and that was exciting. But then over time, it sort of felt like I really needed to step into the matrix more. So what happened is I would do the loose paint, draw the triangle grid, and then really try and thread that color through. It's almost like embroidering decisions, and then I just had to keep seeing it through. It wasn't just I'm going to do triangles now. It just like kept on going. Now we're 4.5 years on, so it's like committed. I should be committed. So.
It's interesting when you were going back and forth about the process itself. You used the word triangulate to describe the process, and I was like, oh, is that a magical moment or a Freudian slip? But
Yes.
It actually leaned into the triangle. I'm wondering, and surely it has revealed itself to you conceptually over and over again because it keeps recurring. You have to meditate on it constantly. Are there moments like that where you recognize that the word itself has a deeper meaning?
Oh yeah, that's a great right. Because words have a lot of double meanings and things, even in the titles too. Triangulate. I'm corralling a lot of thoughts. And there's my own personal history, there's painting history, there's abstract painting, so I think the triangle has always been able to kind of redefine itself for me each time. So it wavers. And actually what was funny is I was drawing lines to make the triangle. It wasn't like I was just like, here's a triangle, here's a triangle. Everything was a grid. So there were, like 20 years ago, I was making paintings. I was telling you that where the flat brush was representing sort of a pixel mark. So it was a way to sort of like get through the painting in a slow way and to draw a line that was staccato or slow, and then build the image, from the brush. Whereas now that the bed has been made by the loose brushwork, and then the grid is on there, and it kind of shrinks some of the color, it focuses things. And then sometimes it works like facets, so when I think about facets, I think about light that comes from forward and it's bouncing in, and those facets in the mind are shifting the meaning or the focus. There's also the feeling of distance between the work. It's definitely different up close and further away. senses that we have in order to feel comfortable to place ourselves in the work or in the space. And these are things I think about a lot. We can look at another painting, maybe the one behind Brad right here. So along with room spaces, more recently I've been interested in text too. So this painting is called Airwaves, and we listen to a lot of music, and I play music as well. Airwaves is a song by Thomas Dolby, but it's a very sort of ethereal, pretty song from the 80s. But in this painting, I was referencing some newsreel footage that was like almost 100 years ago now, or a little less than that, and there were words like picture and eye. So this is almost like picture in your eyes. So I'll just point it out. You can kind of see there's an E, Y, E, and the word picture is in there somewhere. And I, when I use the text, I'm sort of referencing painting a lot or looking at painting, because otherwise I could just have any old word on there. But it's nice to sort of like hone it in and keep it really specific. Along the way, there's also this green that's zigzagging its way through. So the cloud of words are, I guess in abstraction, there's the way to, there's the abstraction like your eyes are going. So my eyes are terrible. They're like minus 27 without contact lenses. I do imagine what it's like to not be able to see. So abstraction can be quite physical. The most recent painting in the show is this one, and the reference point for this was a curtain that had woven weave that was at my family home, and it's from the 60s, and it's still there, and I was thinking, oh, a curtain that's been there for so long has sort of witnessed everything. It's been there, it's just been, like all of our homes, there's things that are meaningful, but at the same time, it felt like a good object that I could actually deal with. So this one has more wavy ones. And the color is more West Coast. I'm from Brooklyn originally, so this is sort of like meeting of two worlds. And so obviously we deal with like amber colored skies sometimes, and so I imagine that that has seeped in. So the idea that like your internal curtain world is also seeing through the outdoor world is like coming together in the painting. And so that kind of shifting tones are a way to unify those feelings.
It's funny you say West Coast because I see post-impressionism.
Okay.
Especially comparing it to that one we're just looking at, which is a totally different color, energy, situation. It's just
that's all those things. They all add up. I think whatever well, that's a good point.
I just see it.
Yeah.
It's really rich. The color is fantastic.
Thank you. This has like metallics and things, so there's a real grounding and a kind of openness to.
Can you talk more about your palette? Like for all of them, I guess.
Oh,
is it like?
yeah.
I know you talked about like art history and referencing, painting here. And
Yeah.
do you like? And then you talked about like pop culture and like a TV show that.
Yes. Well, it's funny. I guess because I'm thinking about the newsreels in a way, or like vintage typography. It's usually in black and white, so it's almost like you have to colorize those things. I use a pretty like bold palette. There was a point where I was like, whatever was left at the palette would become the signifier for the new painting. So I tried to like keep away from any palette and just be more surprised about what was left in the bin before I had to re-up things. And that would sort of really, that would allow a certain surprise, because I always want to build a palette over time. It's almost like the palette sort of becomes itself after a while. So there might be things that I'm not saying that I'm just naturally drawn to, you know, so I sort of allow that to be pretty human. Yeah. And speaking of palette, this one, maybe the most psychedelic of them.
Which one came first before you?
Oh, yeah.
That one or this one?
Um,
No, between these two.
oh, these two, that one.
That one? Okay.
And, but they were like pretty much like sort of sisters that came from this one after. I do work on one at a time, you know, and in part because each one will give me a lot of information on what to do next, you know. This painting is called Stories of the Building, and you know, using double meaning language, it's literally stories of the building, and also the stories that maybe happen within that building. And this is you know, lots of different drawings that took place before I identified, you know, where the structure was going to hold. And really, you know, my friend Brian had mentioned, like, when he comes to look at paintings, it's almost like it toggles up the brain, like where you think you're seeing something, but then it shifts, and that is like an exciting, slow, and surprise read. So that's something that, you know, I deal with in person, you know. When I'm painting or mixing up the palette, actually, this one had a lot of colors, so I probably did mix full palettes. But I might go through and say, hit a lot of fluorescence in an evening. These take, you know, a month to 2 months, the large ones. But depending on how small or how dense and actually work has to be, you know, it has to come back to. But I really like saying that one's done and then it's the next. So that's more my own psychology.
Yeah, the palettes in general, you know, seem to be fairly organic, and this is kind of the weirdo, you know, in the room with all the extra fluorescence. Like, what drove you to experiment with more fluorescent colors as opposed to kind of a more standard painting palette?
I think it's just that. It's like you want to keep surprising yourself, you know, for me. And so the idea of like a fluorescent line, but it would actually be cutting through different looks.
You
and at the same time, you know, you can sort of say, I'm looking at the greens now, so then the greens don't look. I'm looking at the blues now, and they recede, you know. So there's different ways that I would sort of tell myself how to actually get through the painting. You know, oh, we need more fluorescent. Oh, we need more metallic.
Was it fun?
Was it fun? I mean, it's always a struggle in an exciting way, you know, because, you know, you can have too much fun, you know. And then I like this dynamic corner. It's really fun to have, you know, you're looking at this, whether you're feeling this. The words coming off of this interesting column here, and where that column actually reacts to the other painting over there too. So there were some fun structural things in the gallery that I enjoyed playing with that. Yes, yes.
I have a question about this gentleman and I were talking, and just in any of your paintings, because they are so large, and I've always had this question about artists, do they have artists? Is there a certain, when you're painting, okay, I'm gonna come back 10 feet, look at it, do you come back to that same space, or are you more fluid and go, oh, I'll look it over here? Because I would think, I'm a math person, UCLA. Yeah, Southside. So I would always have to come back to that same place and look at it. Mm-hmm. Or are you more creative on that? Do you know what I mean?
I do, and actually I think in the studio I'm trying to surprise myself, so I might, you know, come from across the side there and see it from that way. So it's not always the same space, in part because this is pretty rigid, you know, it works for some structural thing, you know, but you know, when I look at a painting, I'm checking it out.
Yeah.
You know, coming over here. Even though the painting always is quite flat in a lot of sense, so there's not any also really. So, and then you can photograph it straight on, or you know, there's a lot of things in person, right? But I'm pretty active when I'm looking at a thing. It's a lot of, you know, and I might be on a chair on wheels, so I'm sort of going that, or I'm scooting backwards. If I get on a ladder sometimes, if I work on a ladder, you know. So e-painting can be pretty active, yeah.
I do feel like your work does really reveal itself from the sides and
makes sense, yeah, and in part, and I think that's where, you know, when I started bending the grid more, I realized that like, oh, the painting is just gonna retain its edges, but there's gonna be this chance to really like mess with it, you know, that's where the groovy grid came from.
Thumbs up.
Yeah. This painting is called, Black and Light, but it's informed by disco balls and so like electricity coming on, so it stood for a bit, this is real orange orb sort of suspended in the painting, but after a while, I realized that it needed to link up with some pilots that were in the background, so that was a way to kind of imprint it, and then, you know, in the 20s, my grandfather worked for a quick minute for Disney. They did shading in of the Steamboat Willie cartoon, which is when they did the stomping foot and all that stuff. And so I've always been fascinated with, you know, cells in animation. And so there's the possibility of, like Brad was saying earlier about the idea of movement or somewhere. There's a lot of movement in the work that is quite still. So I think that there's, you know, this one is sort of decking you while it's also sort of realizing that it can only go so far. Yes.
So some of these have like images, and then this is like your show.
Right.
But do you make like all these paintings thinking of like, oh, when I put them all together, that's when I'm saying the thing that I want to say?
Oh, you know, that's really good. So these go from like 2022 to now. So, and then there's a lot of paintings that have happened in between. So I really didn't know what the show was going to look like. But I knew that there was enough consistency that the vision could be seen. And as far as the imagery was going to take place, I was allowing other things to come through. So like 1, 2, 3, 4 paintings use a lot of the room space. And then we've got text, atmosphere, curtain, and more object.
But the objects don't have anything to do with each other? Like the words over there don't have anything to do with that disco ball?
I guess not. But maybe more so, you know, I mean, the paintings are individual in that way. So maybe the palette is, no, it's interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the palette, there might be, if I thought a little bit more about it, we could find our way through there, you know.
Well, they're all part of the images that like circulate in your mind and that like move you in that way where
That's
it's
true,
about, you know,
yeah.
like the really, you know, foundational childhood bedroom and then also like the little motif that just caught your eye. And I think that together does something really
Yeah,
interesting.
that's a good point, yeah. I mean, trying to keep, you know, we're always kind of sieving through things, you know, there's enough stuff in here that's trying to, you know, come out or be influenced and trying to, you're wandering through your mind a bit.
Yeah, it's very interesting that there's like a disco ball and grapes next to each other. Yeah, it's like, oh, these are two related somehow.
Yeah.
Josh, I'm curious about your relationship to collage. There's a lot of the paintings, textiles, or collage elements to them, or they have a feel of you work on paper and relationships that you were talking a little bit earlier.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I haven't done a lot of collage. I did a lot of printmaking, so
Right.
that was a real, you know, working with paper. But I do love, you know, Amish quilts and icots and all kinds of bleached elements, you know, that can then be stretched. And so that is there. It's present, but and I'm always looking at stuff, so that's coming in. But I think since I'm always sort of funneling a lot of that information through whatever this is going to be at the end, you know, there's not so much cut up.
But you're doing a lot of printmaking now.
Yeah.
And that is almost like collage, like
Yeah.
several things put on top of each other.
Right. Yeah.
What kind of printmaking?
It's lino cut, so it's like that pink eraser stuff.
Right.
You know, and so I keep sort of consistent size and cut through things, and then images go, and then, you know, that's actually influenced not this set of paintings quite yet, but the ones that are coming up. It's like offering up new ways to expand the universe more. You know, so and it's a very one-to-one. I don't use a press. I just do like CBR. You know, so it's
What's the scale like?
real small,
Yeah.
very small. You know, I've done a curtain one, and it's maybe that big. You know, but really I'm just keeping it. You know, because otherwise we'd have stacks of newspaper around. We could talk about the last thing here. called Floor Falls Away, and it's sort of a combination of looking outside to the inside. So we've got images of porches that I was working with, and this kind of teal and aqua blue, so it makes, trying to gather some exterior feeling. And I just felt after a while of working on the painting, similar to the one series of buildings, that there was this, there was enough perspectival reference that you could almost feel like the floor is falling away, and that maybe gave me the feeling of levitating, so that was exciting.
Yeah, it feels like there's a long exercise there.
Yeah, there are different, points and edges. Yeah. Yeah.
There's one of those buildings where they have ice cream and that like glass.
The glass.
Down.
Oh yeah, you can see down, but you can't. Yeah, no, you're safe in here.
So Josh, on this one, you said was the outside, this is like a plein air. You actually had a photograph, or were you looking at the outside?
All memory. All memory. Yeah, and I think that is already a leap, from direct observation. Like I like that. What were those? It almost made the colors more intense. It made that my initial reference points more intense. But I had to say like, you're green, you're outside. You had to like really separate things. There were points when I used photography, that shooting around LA and stuff like that. Those are more maybe structural words.
So when you start working, what I understand that there is a kind of initial sort of a brush stroke of
Yes.
a composition, then you go across, start creating a grid.
Yeah.
Is there any accidentality in any of the two?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, when you're collecting the information, the initial drawing, there's a lot of possibility. Like there's a lot of marks that are maybe not planned, but then they become once they become triangles, they become just as important as the things that are planned. So it's a way to sort of allow all that information to take hold. So accidentality, there's in a way it's like I do change the colors sometimes. So then what initially was maybe not as fluorescent, I think this was actually a deeper brown orange. Then I just sort of kicked it up a notch, just sort of like pulling it up. So there are those kind of changes, but there's no drips.
So then the color decisions after you put the lines on,
Right.
you're dragging color, you're weaving color through the composition.
Yeah, that's how I think of it too.
Yeah, because in that way it's very traditional.
Yes.
Painting
Yeah.
of, the color is, everything is kind of woven together.
Woven, yes.
As opposed to like isolated area. I mean, to me, that one's sort of the outlier because it's sort of bands of color.
Right.
Whereas everything else is sort of woven,
Yeah.
dragging color through.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right, in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, this is more kind of like traditional landscape. But, it's great to see that kind of movement of color.
So you're thinking like, I'm just making so many triangles and everything.
This is the last one.
I'm gonna put a circle here.
Oh, right. Well,
That's what it's like.
I know it's true, right? But you can't make a circle with a straight line as well. I mean, you could get there, but no, I'm just kidding. But I think it's because 4.5 years in, it keeps revealing itself. There's new bends, there's new way to. I feel like I've just hit the edge. I just like there's a lot more to be discovered there, and that's kind of exciting.
Well, and I almost interjected after the last one, I said, this one feels like it's undulating because the grid is irregular. So that's in a way to address curve and roundness.
Right.
To let it undulate. Here's the object as a circular form, so it automatically becomes, I was trying to push it into room, and the only thing I could get was oculus.
Yeah.
And it didn't make sense. So I kept looking at that because of that. Because the form itself defies the structure. So So it's
Yeah.
like you are bending and turning, like,
Right.
but you're pushing the parameters of what you can do in your construct.
Yeah, those limits, I mean, I think a lot of artists deal with sort of these limits in order to, find as much breadth of excitement in that, So, the sticks keep changing and the shapes keep changing, and they also, the one I'm working on now, this triangle's even smaller, so they feel like, it's like static, and it's larger too, so I'm dealing with both that scale, the intimate scale, and there's more images in there, but they just keep on sort of chewing on each other until maybe something else.
What music were you listening to?
Well, actually right now it's been a lot of political radio, so, I'm just pretty consistent at home, but, I recently have been listening to this band called Glass Beams, and they wear, basically, yeah, and it's pretty funky, and but I know, I love the band The Chameleons. Kristen and I have seen them a couple of times, and actually they're from the '80s, and we just saw them at Belasco. But one of the things that struck me about them is that when they write their set lists, it's even though the songs are longer words, you just swamp or just single words. So it's his reference point, and I started using some of that. Actually, I can show you a painting that references it. Maybe I'll bring it out. Since it's This painting is a bunch of 20 by 23s for the year 20 by 23. And so this painting is called Looking Inwardly. So again, the reference is, very, the artist is looking inwardly, we are looking inwardly, trying to find, different ways to, deal with our subconscious and all those things. And so Mark Burgess, his handwriting is here, and so I just sort of used that as a way to kind of embroider the painting a bit more.
Wait, what is the word?
Looking inwardly. There are other words on there, but the main title is I think it says he has a song called As High As You Can Go. So I think he referenced As High Go. So that's in there too.
And what is the size significance?
Oh, the year. 20 inches by 23 inches. So I did a bunch of So whenever I find this painting, I know when it was made.
And how did you pick the colors on this one?
This one is a good test. I don't remember exactly.
I don't either.
But it might have been, just what was left on the palette from the one before, maybe, that's how it began. Yeah. Ooh, good question.
Well, it's almost got some like flesh tones kind of.
Yeah,
tones,
it's
and
got a
then
bit
like
of that,
snakeskin or something.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was wearing snakeskin boots on stage or.
Right, I don't know. No, it was a pretty dark, they're sort of like post-goth, or like they came from that,
Yeah.
post-punk, sorry, but there was so they're a little bit more intense, but he's very, beautiful lyrics.
Can I ask you a question about this one?
Yes.
I got it.
This is pretty specific, but I consider this an abstract painting. Okay. And when abstract paintings have what I'm going to generically call sky colors.
Okay.
The sky can be lots of colors. But when it's light blue, I always go back to that landscape to abstraction kind of leap with like Turner and whoever else.
Right.
Do you find, and like you've stayed away from it for the most part,
Yeah.
like do you read it as sky, the blue, or not?
I think if anything atmosphere, so maybe there's a bit of that because it has to sort of purple out in a way because maybe that light is diluted from the clouds or with the screen I'm just looking through the porch feeling. But that aqua is pretty seascapey too, so we don't have to, and so that's kind of interesting because the sky doesn't even water.
Sure. And I bring it up, it's hyper-specific, but just the way that non-representational painting can like on a dime like turn into.
Oh yeah.
And it's and it's. I'm not saying that like we all associate to everything.
Yeah.
But I was just wondering, you as a painter, like working on this painting, do you counteract that? Does it occur to you?
I think there are some things that get under my skin, and I need to like censor it or create some other new tension that's gonna pull away. but and in a way, it's sort of like doused in it too. And a lot of but I think if anything, I was just trying to maintain the structure, and even the understructure. So that the orange was sitting on top, and then these were.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing tons of things to complexify. It doesn't have a
Right.
horizon.
Yeah.
There's marks that appear
Yeah.
in front of it and
Yeah.
behind it. I was just curious.
Oh no, that's good. I love that.
Do you remember what room, is this one room over and over, or is it a couple rooms?
It's a few rooms, yeah.
Do you
And I think
remember
actually
which?
The initial one was a porch in Massachusetts, so it's more East Coast reference there, you know. So
From like when you had your band college, just post-college roommates in Jamaica Plains or something?
Some of that is in there too, but also my mom and dad and I used to go to the Berkshires, so there was like Western Mass, you know, and we'd stay with a friend, and then I would get to sit on and she actually fun, she had AstroTurf porch, and then actual green trees, so it was like, so, you know, in a way there was some of that sort of, fake green, you know, heightened fluorescent green mixed with, you know, natural deep green.
Yeah, I read sort of woods
Woods, yeah.
a little.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because you talked about rooms or interiors several times.
Yeah.
It makes me think of like the intimates, like Boulevard and Bernard, and you're doing a totally different
Oh, okay.
thing. But you know how like they have this dense patterning at times,
Yeah.
optical, rich light, rich color. I mean, you're doing a totally different vocabulary.
Wait, did you say Vuillard?
Yeah.
Oh, we talk about Vuillard all the time.
Okay. But just like literally saying interiors. It
Well,
makes me think of.
well, that, I mean, you've got patterns, you have people hiding in patterns, you have like family in patterns, you've got like a lot of that psychology in there too.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously those really intense, beautiful ones are you know, yeah, I mean, I love We Are, and it always, you know, those hit, yeah.
When you're doing something, this is a dumb process question, when you're working on the really large canvases,
Yeah.
while you're doing that, do you rotate them? Like, so that you can get at them? I mean, I was imagining like, man, I can't think of Josh like standing on a ladder, you know, on the top of
He
it would
does.
be-
I mean, I
or
do.
do you do that? I'm like, man, that would just be exhausting.
I like a lot. No, I like because you can, you know, if I was sitting, you know, I like to be right here where
Right,
the eye is.
right,
You know?
right.
So, but I do flip a canvas. You
Yeah.
know? But I pretty much know it's where the top and bottom is when I'm even beginning it.
Mhm.
You know, it's rarely that I'm flipping. You know,
Yeah.
but so I'm okay if it goes down and has to like go on the side for a bit. You know?
Mhm.
But I do actually like approaching the thing.
Sure.
You know,
Right reading, like
Yeah,
where,
yeah.
how it's gonna finally be.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can get into trouble. You turn it upside down, it starts
Oh, yeah.
looking good that way, but not quite, and then you turn it back and it looks
Totally.
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I have a dumb
I like that.
Oh, good. Bring them on.
I mean, you know, but thinking about mosaic,
Yes.
you know, and this kind of making a large image with small little meaning.
Yes.
You know, did you ever have like a mosaic moment where you were looking at a mosaic and say, oh, something's here?
No, I mean that.
Is there?
I love whenever they're discovering. Every week they're discovering a new mosaic in Pompeii or somewhere that they, you know. In fact, I was just found this. And there's a painting in there that references a mosaic checkerboard, which was it's like an initial dance floor in a way, you know. So there was a way that is entering some, you know, deeper history. But the idea of like mosaicing the mosaic, you know, kind of triangulating that, you know, so it gets chewed up again, you know.
You know how like you're making like small marks to make an abstract, and then
Yeah.
usually like abstracts are just like, you know, big marks. Is there sometimes? All right. Is there like a set of paintings or something that you're like looking at, and then going like, oh, what if I made this painting but like in small marks?
Is it in my work or
No, in this group of works.
Oh, and then I would then.
Is there like some group of paintings that you're sort of responding to?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think each painting is in a way, responding to the initial strokes that are underneath and the decisions to make whatever size of those triangles.
Other people's paintings.
Oh, other people's paintings.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at a lot of work. I can't, and I love a lot of,
There's not like
contemporary.
source.
There's not a specific person maybe involved. It's just sort of like allowing yourself to just build up enough of your own imagery in a way. And since there are limitations that I've put onto the work that it's always going to kind of strain through. I mean, I love the work of James Sienna, or I love the work of
Brock.
Brock. Yeah, those are two really that, James Sienna works with very small marks. Brock with, his deep ochre palette, all kinds of things that, he's Picasso, but different,
Aren't you more like when it looks like someone else's work? That's when you know you're in a bad place.
Oh yeah, there's that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a better answer.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of that. It's like, oh no, that looks like such and such. Oh God, re-stretch.
How do you feel about that painting?
Which one, the big one?
Yeah. Like when you're done with it, like, okay.
Oh, I mean, it's still surprising me. It doesn't actually ever sit still. So that's a good point to always feel good about.
Because then after that, you went into the non-fluorescent colors.
But there's a lot of stuff in between. It's like what I'm showing is also almost like, what came after that, I can't really quite remember.
Like
It seems like in that one, you break up the things the most, and then in the newer work, you try to make things.
Oh, I'm healing.
Yeah. Like make things instead of pixelate.
The images are constantly they're chewing themselves up, but they're also sometimes the focus then becomes a little bit more on what the grid can do. So and then that the color is kind of interchanging with that too. Yeah.
Any more questions for Josh? All right, well then thank you so much, Josh.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And we'd love to invite you all to also take a step into the office. We have much more of Josh's work kind of more informally installed inside there. So take a peek at that. And then I will be refilling the cooler ASAP. So.